After years of scraping by and putting his child first, Luke, a single dad and full-time mechanic, finally allowed himself a small break. When he checked in for his long-awaited international flight, he was stunned to discover he'd been upgraded to first class. For the first time in years, something had gone right. Sitting in that wide leather seat, sipping water from a real glass, he felt the weight of the past slowly lift. It wasn't about luxury, it was about feeling human again. After losing his wife and pushing through every day on pure grit, this moment felt like the universe offering a breath of fresh air. But what Luke didn't know was that this flight would become a defining moment. Not just for him, but for others too. Sometimes, the simplest comforts come right before the biggest tests of character. What he chose to do next would not only show the world what quiet kindness looks like, but would also inspire a ripple effect that stretched far beyond one seat on a plane. Settling into his seat, Luke noticed a commotion a few rows up. Two little girls, twins, maybe 7, stood awkwardly near a flight attendant, their oversized backpacks slipping off their shoulders. Their nanny was flustered, clearly panicked, as she tried to explain a booking error. Only one seat had been assigned in economy and the girls couldn't sit there alone. The flight crew was sympathetic, but no solution seemed to emerge. The girls looked tired, one clinging to a stuffed bunny, the other blinking back tears. Luke watched the scene unfold as other passengers looked away, choosing silence over involvement. Something stirred in him. He'd been the parent flying solo with a child once, nervous, exhausted, praying for patience and grace. He didn't wait for someone to ask. Quietly, he stood up and offered his seat to the girls. "They need it more than I do," he said with a calm certainty that silenced the cabin. No grand gesture, just human decency. His decision wasn't about being noble, it was instinct. That's what kindness looks like in real life. Not loud, not planned, just right. And in that moment, without realizing it, Luke's simple act would inspire a story that would soon reach far beyond that crowded aisle. Luke didn't pause to weigh options or look around for applause. He simply stood, handed over his boarding pass, and gave up the plush seat he'd barely had time to enjoy. The flight attendant blinked in surprise, the nanny looked near tears, and the twin girls, now wide-eyed and settling into their unexpected comfort, offered shy smiles. Luke gathered his worn backpack and quietly made his way back to economy, slipping into a narrow middle seat without a word of complaint. It wasn't about loss or sacrifice. It was about instinct, empathy, the unshakable belief that comfort means nothing if others are struggling. He'd never considered it a big deal. He didn't need recognition, applause, or free drinks. To him, it was simple. People help when they can. That's the kind of kindness he believed in, not loud or flashy, but true. What he didn't know, however, was that this quiet, selfless moment would inspire someone watching, someone who could change his life forever. Sometimes doing the right thing means letting go of what you think you've earned and trusting that something bigger might come from the smallest decision. As the plane touched down and passengers shuffled toward the exit, Luke stayed in his seat, stretching his stiff legs and thinking about a quiet hotel room and maybe, finally, a real night's sleep. But just as he stepped into the terminal, a woman in a sharp navy suit stood near the gate, scanning faces with unmistakable authority. She wasn't just any traveler. Her posture, her presence, the way airport staff subtly stepped aside for her said everything. "Who's Luke Harrison?" she asked, her voice calm but direct. Luke raised his hand, unsure. "That's me." Her expression shifted, softening as she stepped forward and extended her hand. "I'm Amelia Grant, CEO of Sky Harbor Airlines, and the mother of those 2 girls." Luke blinked, stunned. He had no idea who they were. "I just wanted to make sure they were okay," he said quietly. She smiled, the kind that came from deep sincerity. "They are, because of you." She reached into her bag, handed him a sleek business card and said, "From now on, You fly first class. Any airline I own. My assistant's number is on the back if you ever need anything. Luke stammered, unsure how to accept such a gesture. But Amelia shook her head. You already earned it. You reminded my daughters, and me, that kindness still exists without motive. What you did, most people wouldn't. That act will inspire them for years. Luke watched as she turned to leave, her daughters waving sleepily behind her. For the first time in years, he didn't feel invisible. He felt like maybe, just maybe, good people still get noticed. Still reeling from the conversation, Luke turned the card over in his hands, as if trying to make sense of what had just happened. Lifetime first-class travel? A personal line to the CEO of one of the largest airlines in the country? It didn't feel real. He hadn't helped those girls because he expected anything. He didn't even know who they were. But Amelia Grant had seen something in that quiet moment. A glimpse of decency in a world that often looked the other way. Her gesture wasn't just a gift. It was a recognition that small acts of kindness still matter, especially when no one's watching. When Luke got to his hotel room, an email had already arrived. Confirmation of his new flight status, upgraded accommodations, and a note that simply read, "Thank you for reminding us that good people still fly under the radar." Luke sat down on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed. He had only wanted to do the right thing, and somehow that decision had changed the way someone powerful saw the world. More importantly, it had given her daughters an example to remember. One small choice had gone on to inspire something bigger, proof that compassion, even when quiet, never goes unnoticed. Later that evening, as Luke watched the city lights flicker outside his hotel window, it wasn't the upgraded flights or VIP treatment that lingered in his mind. It was the feeling of finally being seen. For years, he had moved through life quietly, doing what needed to be done, holding his family together after heartbreak, and never expecting anyone to notice. But now, a simple gesture, offering his seat to two little girls, had echoed in ways he never imagined. It reminded him that even small, unspoken acts of kindness carry weight. They ripple outward, touching lives beyond our own, even when we think no one's paying attention. For Luke, the true reward wasn't the first-class service or the high-level connections. It was the realization that his everyday decency had left a mark. It had become a story shared, a lesson passed on. And in a world often distracted by noise, that moment of quiet goodness would go on to inspire more hearts than he'd ever meet. That night, he went to sleep not just as a mechanic or a widowed father, but as a man whose humanity had quietly shifted the course of someone else's journey.